have a bell. I had to bring my own bell. Yep, no bell. See, got to bring my own bell. Always have to. That's like a 100-year-old hotel bell. That I used to get this wonderful bell whenever it went live, and now it just disappears and the little icon comes up, but I don't get that wonderful bell to tell me and for the longest time, it was funny. For like the first 50 critiques I did, I kept saying, and there's the bell, and everybody be looking at me on the other side going, what the hell is he talking about? Because they couldn't hear the bell. I was the only one that could hear it. So anyways, we are here finally for Chris Kalmbach's level 20 or challenge 20, whatever the hell they're calling it these days. But Chris, man, how have you been? And can you believe it? 20 levels.
Yeah, well, it only took me about a year. Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's cool. It's been a great experience. So feeling good.
Well, and you're going places, but you're not really going places because, we don't ever let anybody leave House Lightbender. So it's, like Bates Motel. Once you get there, you don't get to leave, unfortunately. But no, we don't ever kick anybody out. And we hope you'll stick around and continue to inspire us with your work. And hopefully, too, we can make some good recommendations if you decide to go on to Sphere 2. I know there's a couple of masters out there that would love to have you. And needless to say, even if you don't decide to do that, you got that level 20 lounge thing coming up, which is pretty cool, where you get into a whole community and a whole network of more Arcanum folks. And what we were talking about there just before we started was connecting and being able to hang out with people. And I'm sure you're going to find people in your area that you might not even know, are in the Arcanum with that level 20 lounge. So, yeah,
that would be cool. There seems to be a little bit of a drought of people down here Florida-wise, but we'll see.
Yeah, have you got a chance to hang out with Lynn Wazicki at all?
No, we threatened to a while back, but never came to be.
Well, I know she was disappointed to find out that you're not going to be going to Acadia at the same time that we all are.
Yeah, me too.
Because she was, going to get up there and hang, and we're going to hang out for 8 days. And yeah, man, I was hoping that and you and Joey and whoever else could make it could come up, and you're more than welcome still. It's the doors are open while we're there. As long as we don't trash the place, we should be all right. But yeah, you're going up you're going to try to make it up a couple of weeks early.
Yeah, late June. I'm going to be up there for really just 4 nights, I guess. I don't know. A friend of mine wanted to go, so I said, all right, if you can put up with me and my camera,
there you go.
I'll make the trek. So yeah, it'll be a little bit shorter of a tour, but we'll see what I can discover.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to be in Chicago at that point in time, getting wholly drunk with Scott Norris. That's my plan, at least. I'm going to be testing beer. That's what I'm going to be doing because we're brewing brewing. I know everybody's been wondering about this because I threatened this a long time back. I'm actually going to be brewing the first batch of Arcanum House Lightbender Stout. Yes, it's going to happen in July. So I'm actually going to Milwaukee and we're going to taste test a little bit. And then when we get back, we're actually going to start the brewing process. So we're going to send everybody a couple of bottles of beer so y'all can tell me how bad it is.
Yeah, not through the U.S. Postal Service, though.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure something out. I think we can smuggle it somehow.
Yeah.
This isn't live or anything, is it? Oh, well. I'm not doing anything bad. Don't worry. So, all right. Well, Chris is here for his Challenge 20, and he brought us 5 photos, and I'm sure he's pretty anxious to get to that. And I have him queued up over here. So, Chris, if you're ready, man, we'll take a look.
Okay.
All right. Cool. So we'll just do that button there, and then that button there, and that button there, and that button, and 17 more buttons after I hit that button and tell it to go there, and everything's working. Yes. All right. You should be seeing your name and lights over there.
I am indeed.
Cool. All right. Well, I always give everybody this choice for their challenges would you like me to give you points, or are you just like, let's talk about the photos? It's totally up to you.
Yeah, I don't need points, I don't think.
Cool. I usually, say like, this one definitely needs to be in your portfolio, blah, 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 that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But I just kind of think the points are kind of like, I don't know. I don't personally think that I hate to say we're different from everyone else, but I just don't think we fit into this category of pointage things. And this next go around with folks, I might be changing this all up. I don't know. I get the feeling that a lot of folks are just like, the points, sort of thing. So, all right. Well, no points. More talk about the photos. That sounds good to me. So let's get right into your first photo. An obelisk. And I noticed a theme in your photos that you brought. You're digging on some serious IR work here.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your IR rig and what you're using right now.
I got a Nikon D7000, which was my previous camera that I got converted at LifePixel to their deep black and white filter, which I don't know what the NM is on that one. But everything comes out pink and magenta.
Yep.
So those are the raw files that I'm dealing with.
All right.
I got a Sigma 10-20 lens on that, which I had the focus calibrated to that lens. I don't know if that was worth doing or not, but
it is. Yeah, it definitely is for that lens. I used probably the first 3 years that I shot. I don't think I took that lens off my camera once I bought it. The 10-20 is a magic lens. It's an awesome lens, and it's not the sharpest in the world around the edges and stuff, but it's darn good for the money. And man, just so infectious, the look that it gives landscapes, especially landscapes like this particular shot.
Man, I totally agree with you. I love that lens, and it's like my biggest regret moving to Sony is I mean I can put that lens on the A6000, but I don't have control over the aperture, which like really makes me sad. And the thought of spending $400 for a converter or adapter or whatever for that lens is.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, the 16-35 Zeiss is a really good replacement lens, or that 10-18 that Sony sells is actually darn good for what it is, and that's a lot cheaper. I would say that the one mistake I made is when I was told to give up my 10-20. When I moved to full frame, I had to give up the 10-20 because it was an APS-C sized lens. My friend said, "Oh, if you're going to do that, the equivalent is the 12-24. So you just got to get the 12-24." And I hated it. I don't know what it was, but it just, I don't know, man. It was a Sigma lens, it was like I was trying to stay with Sigma, and I just swore so much when I used that lens, and I finally ended up selling it. I just couldn't get it to do what I really wanted to. And I didn't have a suitable replacement for a long time. I had the 15mm diagonal fisheye, which was full frame, and just nothing else really. And that looks pretty cool when you lens correct it. So I use that on my IR camera quite a bit because it's an alpha mount and it's easy to just plug it in and go. But I took my IR camera out today because I know you brought all these photos because you had questions about workflow and if I did anything different or what I did with some of my IR images. And my IR images are nothing compared to these, by the way. These are gorgeous. And I just, I take out my IR camera when I can't get my brain wrapped around creativity. I love to take that camera out and just look through it. I mean, I love to take shots with it and process them and all that stuff. But just looking through that camera at the world in IR is just, it's kind of really, ethereal. And I think that makes me get into creative spirit. Every time I'm feeling kind of crappy and like it's going nowhere, I pull that camera out and start playing with it. And I have a lot of fun. And someday I'll get serious about it for sure. So with this image, so when you're taking the shot, you're obviously shooting in color when you're taking it because you're getting the red image. And we're going to talk a little bit about kind of this shot in particular and goals and crap like that. But talk to me a little bit about your workflow. So you get the raw, you pull the raw into Lightroom, I assume?
Yeah, well, I'll back up just one sec. Like when I'm shooting, I shoot in monochrome.
Oh, you
So
do? Okay.
that's what I'm seeing on the back of the camera. But then once it goes in Lightroom, it converts back to the magentas or whatever.
Okay, gotcha. So you're shooting in RAW,
Yep.
right? So you're looking at a JPEG on the back of the camera, but what you're ending up with this still is just the RAW data.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
And when I first got the camera back, I was really struggling because the light meter is not metering for IR. I finally figured out, so
Right.
I was having a little bit of difficulty getting decent exposure, and so I just shoot a 3-shot bracket no matter what.
Okay.
To either cover my ass I've got 3 IR shots that we're going to talk about tonight. All of them were, I took the 3 bracketed shots, sent them over to to Photoshop and channel swapped the reds and blues.
Okay.
And then put them together as an HDR, and then process them to black and white.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you're that's pretty cool. So you're channel swapping first, and then you're creating the HDR rather than creating the HDR and then channel swapping.
Now that you said that, maybe I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm doing the HDR, then doing the channel swap.
Okay.
I think.
Gotta get in that rhythm, brother. Well, whatever you're doing, it's working well. And I think that, ultimately what I share with you tonight won't make a bit of difference as long as you're getting the results. And that ultimately, workflow is workflow, and it's always fun to try different things. And, if you're uncomfortable with the way it's working for you now and you're trying to optimize and things like that, it's well worth looking at other workflows for sure. And I always, whenever I look at somebody else's workflow, I usually pick something up anyway that I adapt or use or try it out just to see if maybe it feels more comfortable in the creation of the image. Because what workflows come down to for me is, can I be creative and also do the damn part of it that's called work? Because that's the thing, right? I mean, you can't do work, the tedious stuff like, oh, I got to channel swap, I got to create this stuff, I got to do that, I got to move it over here, I got to do this. It's really tough to be creative and keep that muse going while you're waiting for like brackets to combine. It's
Totally.
because you come at an image, right? You take a new image out of your camera and you're like, oh man, I can't wait. This is gonna be awesome. And then you're like, oh, I gotta wait. Now I gotta wait. And you're like, where does that go? How do you keep it going? And you can, but it's not always that easy. And sometimes it does, put a nice wedge in there, and then you lose it, and you're like, oh, I'll come back to it later when I, I'm re-enthused over the image. And sometimes that never comes back. And that's the thing where I try to figure out a workflow that kind of goes as quick as possible, but also is very effective and does the job properly. But I think that you're getting results for sure. I really love this. So the thing about this image that I like, and I'm going to ask you your goal, and let me ask you your goal first. Of talk to me a little bit about why you brought this image to me, and what you were basically trying to portray in the obelisk. What was the thing that got you to pull the trigger on this?
Well, what definitely caught my eye was seeing the obelisk with the tree branches behind it and knowing how that would probably render in infrared. Mm-hmm. So from there, it was getting as close to the obelisk as I could without losing it out of the frame and looking up, at it from a low perspective. And so, I wanted the way the foliage goes white, the way the grasses go white and all that. I knew the branches would read black. So, I thought that would look cool, kind of emanating out of the obelisk. And then, this was at this one particular graveyard in Cincinnati where it seemed like everyone was trying to outdo themselves with who had the taller obelisk. And so this thing was probably 30 feet tall. So I really wanted to try to show that, which I feel like did not happen here. And I did not realize at the time I was shooting it that it was not, in fact, a square base. It was rectangular base. So that threw off my symmetry, which was going to be thrown off by the tree anyway. But So there's a couple of things that bother me about it. One is the base is not symmetric, so that like the image feels a little off kilter, and I've gone back and checked several times to make sure that that thing is dead straight up and down, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
But this image feels tilted to me, and I don't feel that it gives that sense of height to that thing. I mean, that thing could be 3 feet tall, it could be 30 feet tall. I don't know that anybody could tell the difference.
Well, so one of the things that you do in a few of your shots, we'll talk a little bit about this in a couple of the other shots, is you do like the down low angle in pointing up. And so I've talked about this before. The down low angle does a couple of things for you and can do a couple of things for you. And the weird thing about it is it can go one of two ways. So if you shoot a down low angle looking up and you make it a kind of mysterious or a magic, let's say magical, not mysterious, a magical sort of image like you have here, it gives a sense of wonder to the viewer. So the viewer feels it's basically known as the child view. So we're basically going back and we're feeling like this sense of wonder over what we're looking at. And I think you accomplished that. The overall symmetry is going to be tough, like you said, with the tree and everything. But I think there's a natural thing going on here too, and that's kind of acceptable to the viewer. At least I know it is to me. And I did notice a little bit of the symmetry being off with the stone itself, with the one side being longer. I can tell you a little bit, kind of clue you in a little bit on what you can do in that case sometimes. If it bugs you, like symmetry bugs me, you know this, you've listened to enough of my critiques that when it's off, it's, symmetry is one of those things. It is symmetry because it's perfect. Symmetry means mirror image, means balance, means the same thing on both sides. So you can't have kind of symmetry, right? That's kind of pregnant. It doesn't happen. So it's one of those things. You're either going to not have symmetry or you're going to have it. You can't have close symmetry because it doesn't exist. It's no longer symmetry. So you're like I am. It bothers you when it's not dead on. And so what I end up doing is I take the image after I'm done processing the image. I have it completely like toned the way I want it. I've got all the light the way that I want it. Everything's good that way. Then I'll usually pull it into Photoshop and I'll pull out the rulers. I get it in Photoshop and I find out exactly what's off, and I'll put vertical rulers on it. I'll put straight up and down rulers on it. Everything I'll be measuring and seeing what's what. And then I'll find out, like on this image, I can tell that the left side is longer. It goes back farther than the right side because you told me it was rectangular, and I can see that in the image. If that bugs you for the symmetry, which, again, symmetry, it probably should, you can actually take it into Photoshop and use the liquify tool. And the liquify tool is awesome because it can move things without looking warped. So you could actually move that whole side closer to the right side, move it in a little bit, and you could make it look just like the left side. And I think it wouldn't take much more than just a little bit of an adjustment to do that. If that's, what you're going for. I think it's a powerful image. I don't think it shows the height. I think you're exactly right that making the base so big and the top small kind of has a tall feel to it, but it doesn't for some reason. Maybe it's too low of an angle and it needed to be just a little bit higher. I'm not sure. It definitely looks like it's going high in the tree, but I don't have anything in the scene to compare it to. So the tree looks small, the obelisk looks big. So I think overall, as a new viewer to this, it kind of tells that story. And I think what you're struggling with is when we have an image that's almost there but not quite there. That's kind of where the doubt comes in on whether or not it's pulling you're pulling it off for what you wanted in your mind's eye. Again, is it the fault of the image or what you're doing? I think it's more practice. I think it's just like, yeah, it's close, man. I got to go back at this. I want to get this image. I got to take several different shots and figure out which one of them is actually going to make that happen. And I'm sure that you can find lots of cemeteries with lots of obelisks in them. And what I do is I'd go looking for one that isn't so tall and see if you can make it look tall somehow, depending on the angle or how you shoot it. But I think this is one of those images that it's a 2.8er. It's something to learn from for sure. It's beautiful. It's processed excellent. Your toning, your process for the IR is killer. You are the black and white king. I mean, it's just, you stuck with that style. All of your images tonight are black and white. I don't want to scare anybody off, but expect to see some awesome images, and they're all mono. And I love that. You've got that definitely going for you. So I think this is one of those shots that I just practice, man. Just go take some more shots of it. I know you can't probably go to Cincinnati, but cemeteries are everywhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I hear you. Practice makes perfect for sure. And there's a good chance I'll be back up there at some point. And anybody listening, there's a cemetery there, which turns out to be the second largest in the U.S. called Spring Grove. And that's where this is. And it is freaking beautiful. So I highly recommend a visit to it.
So a lot of times when I'm in Lightroom, it's just what I'm doing with your image is, so see how I'm looking at this in Lightroom, and I'm using the edge of the screen. I always use I cheat and just use the edge of the screen as my kind of my ruler, because we know that's pretty straight. So you can see here where, your one side is taller than the other side. I would look up here at the top where these two little filigrees come up, and we'd measure those. Those are about just dead on. So if I was going to do any type of warp, and you can do like a puppet warp with this, where you can lock these points up here and so they never move. And then you can actually move these points to a rulered point, and it will stretch the image just right. And it won't look like it's stretched at all. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
So looks like you did some removal in the back. Did you have some artifacts a little bit in the back there?
Yeah, there was like this weird thing in the grass next to it, and just definitely some whatever little distractions got deleted.
So the vertical is great. I think the vertical is on from what I'm seeing here. It's kind of hard to. It's hard for me to tell. I'll be honest with you. It's hard for me to tell because I have a movie light like right in my eyeballs right now. So it's right next to the screen that I have to look at, and while I can see it, I wear glasses and it makes seeing lines a little bit tougher. So let me put it.
I pretty much swear under oath that it is straight up and down that corner facing us, and that's why the horizontals are out of whack. Is because I was so hung up on the vertical, because it still feels to me like it's leaning, but I think that's just the tree giving weight to one side.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let me just stop doing that. Lightroom. There we go. Let me just pull it over here into the madness zone, which is, oops. I want that one, not this one. So I would look at, it's a little tough to see. So that's quite a ways off at the bottom. So I look at each of the points that equal each other. So like here and over here on this side. So if I just do, and the tough thing with this stupid adjustment is that each adjustment affects every other angle going, which is always fun. So if I adjust that, then we have to double check to make sure we're not tilting at all, which I think it's still straight. See how we lost a lot of this area over here on this side. So, you're not dead center anymore because that's turned.
Yep.
And the only way to fix that is to then move this. And then with this adjustment, doing it this way, you can get these two sides to be equal, but then you're off center because that one side is longer. So I really think the only real fix to this, if you want to go at it and save this image, would be to throw it over in Photoshop and then use the, it's going to be really simple. Use the liquefy tool to just make a giant brush, center it right here, and just move it over about right here. And it's all going to line right up. You're going to be like, wow, that was super easy. So do you do much in Photoshop, or is it mostly Lightroom?
Photoshop, I do it for more of the heavy lifting as I think of it. So I'll do the skewing and perspective and transform stuff, and for major cloning and deleting.
I'll load up Photoshop. I know that you like doing these critiques to learn stuff, so I don't mind spending some extra time just to since this is your last go around here with me, I might as well force you to stay with me for a little.
So while we were talking earlier, I just checked in my Lightroom catalog, and I do the HDR before I do the channel swap. That's the way I did this one. Did I lose you? No. That's interesting. This is super fucking painful. I'm still on the air, by the way, and you guys are all sitting there laughing at me. I'll be sure not to pick my nose. Sweet. All you sick fucking voyeurs out there. Aha! There he is. What's up? Where you been, man?
Well, Time Warner just got bought by Charter Communications, and thank you very much. My cable modem has been going off about every 2 or 3 hours on schedule. So,
Cool.
So much for having brand new owners. Thank you very much. That is the very first time that I have lost communication during a hangout on my end. Unbelievable.
Lucky me. Turns out I was live at that time. Like Tony was
awesome. Well, you see, you just gotta have Pac-Man or something ready to go to show the fans. So, all right. So we were talking about straightening out that photo. So you were doing something while I heard was like, it turns out while I was click, that was it. So I'm assuming, were you working on that in the background?
Yeah. While you were talking, I was looking at my Lightroom catalog, and I'm going to HDR before I'm doing the channel swap.
Oh, okay. Awesome. All right.
On this one. The other ones, we'll, we'll
Gotcha.
go by case basis here.
Case by case basis. That's okay. All right. So what I was playing around with, watch my modem. It's going to blow up any minute. Was I was over in Photoshop, and basically I was going to use the liquefy tool to show you how to move this over. It's fairly easy. I'm not going to get into it, I don't think, with you right now. We can do it after the hangout if you want to with everybody. But essentially, if you've ever played with this before, the liquefy tool is a secondary tool that comes up. Always on the wrong screen, by the way. And it's when I drag it from screen to screen, it becomes giant. So I go from my little 1080p screens to these from the giant monitors. I lose everything. So it gives you this like little app sort of thing. But what I usually use it for is just zooming in and out to move something. So you don't get the rulers over here. I wish they'd add that feature. But generally, if you make a big enough brush, so you got to make a big brush like this size brush, it moves things procedurally from the middle of the image, wherever the middle of the brush is. So if I take this and I just grab a hold of this part of the image, I can move it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also make the brush smaller, and you can pull over just the grass so that we don't lose the edge of your image.
Yep.
And you basically go back and forth a little bit between this and the rulered side of it until you get it. The nice thing is it's very organic. So when you're done, it doesn't look like you warped it. And it doesn't take very much for me to get that a little bit closer. The other thing I noticed here, remember we were talking about this line, this side being a little higher than this side. You can even shrink this down. And it takes a little bit to get used to how this tool works. But once you figure it out, it's like magic because it can take images that looked a little off to you and totally salvage them.
Yeah, no, it's looking a lot better already.
So, and where I move that, you can definitely see that like even if this tree line bugs you back here, you can actually just take just the tree line and move that. Even it out. I mean, it's ridiculous what you can do with image. But I mean, you're putting a lot of work into your images from the shoot time to the processing. I mean, if you're trying, if you wanted to work on getting that symmetry and everything exactly perfect, liquefy is definitely the way to go. Just go in and brute move it around. And I usually suggest to anybody who's doing it, the best way to do it is actually to drag down, make a copy so that if it gets too out of whack, you can always go back. And the liquefy tool actually has a procedural undo where if you make an adjustment and then you make 5 more adjustments, you can actually Control Z backwards out of it and take one adjustment away. So if you kind of mess something up royally and it doesn't look right, you can kind of go back.
Okay.
So yeah, it took me the longest time to get that tool to work right. But once I figured out how to get it to do what I wanted it to, by changing the brush size and where I centered the brush for movement, those are the 2 key properties there. It really changed like a lot of worry about doing perspective and symmetry for sure. So play around with that a little bit. I think it's excellent image, man. You're definitely, I know we've talked about this before as far as like tones and all that kind of stuff. You have a specific look. When I see your images, I know they're your images. So I think you're dead on with that. I wouldn't change anything in that department. And as far as shoring up your workflow, I'm going to give you a secret tonight that may shave a few minutes off that to make it a little bit keep the creative juices flowing a little bit. Well, we're going to save it till the end because the internet's got to go up at least 3 or 4 more times. Did you have any questions for me at all on this image?
No, man, I'm totally going to go back with the liquefy tool and get this thing dialed in. So
cool. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's worth it. Well worth it for sure. Yeah. Cool image. All right. Well, that started out a little weird, but it got cool. All right. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts behind bringing this image to the critique and what your issues, if you had any, with the image were.
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar issues with the lens distortion and the rear left side of that building, doing the lean.
Yep.
So, and I guess the liquefy tool may actually revolutionize my life. So maybe I already have the answer for how to fix it. But I was using the skew tool,
Mm-hmm.
and then that affects the whole image. Like it pulls everything.
Yep.
So I might fix that side, but then the other side's screwed up, and back and forth, and it just becomes kind of a mess. But it's looking like the liquefy tool is going to be my answer to this stuff.
Yeah, the liquefy is more like painting. I mean, that's what I think is cool about it. If you combine it with, if you don't already have a Wacom tablet, this Huon tablet, which is very simple and it doesn't do all the features, but it's accurate and it works right. You combine liquefy with one of these tablets, and suddenly it becomes more like you're painting your images, because you can really move things around, and it's much more granular. And so, yeah, my comment on this image was that the angular distortion. I don't think that this image is I mean, we know what this image is, and we know what it's a portrayal of the Parthenon, and it looks, a lot like a mausoleum. I think you're probably still in the cemetery, correct?
I sure am.
Yeah. So it's got kind of a so when I look at your images, I kind of get the I can't remember what the guy's name is that I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. He did all of the creature effects for The Hobbit. You know what I'm talking about, right? The director.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm in a completely different mode, so it's not in my head. I hate that. Anyways, I kind of get that kind of movie like, The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings kind of feel. Now, I know this is different. That isn't that sort of image as far as like the building portrayal, but you have that processing style that gives a very movie-like or cinematic feel to the image. And so this one's got that kind of leaning issue going on. And I played around with it a little bit, and you can get one thing to go one way, and then you end up with like the tree on the right tends to lean too much, and then you're like, what the hell's going which direction where? And so I think that, again, the liquefy tool, for me, this image was a little too framed out, and unfortunately I keep going left with this image because the darkness on this side is a little heavy for me. And I don't suggest you crop it out. I basically went in with the adjustment brush and painted this to where the shadows were a little lighter on the sides, because I like them everywhere else. But I think it would probably do better if you were going to vignette here, which it looks like you have a little bit of a vignette, not much, kind of a natural vignette going on. But I think that if you did add a vignette to this, I don't know if you did or not, it's made this evergreen tree over here on the left a little too dark. So it tends to be a little left heavy, which the image is already kind of composed to the left. So you're balancing the building with the open space on the right, which is proper composition. You did a nice job there. But then the darkening of the tree on the left makes it almost too heavy on that side. So I think you need to lighten that up just a little bit. Other than that, the straightening and that kind of stuff was where I saw this image just needed a little bit of tweaking. I think all of your images are not interesting thing. A lot of times people bring images and I give them no, Scott, not Peter Jackson. Stop. I'll think of his name or I'll type it into Google, one of the two, and then I'll be brilliantly smart because, Google. So I think a lot of people bring images and, we talk about things you can do and it's practice. But your images are, most of them are completed. I look at them and say, these are just little things. They're not, this is, again, the last image, easily a portfolio image when you get that the way you want it. And I think this image is as well. I think that it's just getting those lines and those final little things. And liquefy is going to definitely, I can't wait to see, you're going to have a blast with that, because you can do all sorts of things with that tool that open up a whole new world. So, yeah.
Sweet.
I think it's with this one. It was just a little left heavy. What I did is basically I came in with the adjustment tool. I didn't do a lot. Let's see if it's on. Okay, it's not auto mask. I just made a really big thing and I went like that on the side, and then I took the adjustment that was there and I just kind of popped open the light on that side just a little bit, so that it wasn't so bold, because it just draws me over into that area so much. So you'd have to play with it to get it balanced just right. And it's a green tree, so normally they would show up white, but the problem is that there was no sun, because it doesn't happen unless there's sun on that stuff over there. So, yep. And I think that, I mean, that balances it more with the tree that's over here on the right, which takes it out of the equation so that it's not becoming an element, because we don't want something on the edge of our frame to be the element unless it's balanced with something else, which effectively nullifies it in the composition. The story here is the building and the awesome IR grass, and then the framing of the trees around it, kind of, for me at least.
Yeah, cool. So if you zoom hard on one of those front columns, the other thing I seem to get a fair amount of is noise with the infrared, and I don't know if that's a feature of the D7000, which I don't think was an ideal camera for conversion from what I had read. And honestly, I don't remember if I threw this through. I have that CK, noiseless CK or whatever. I don't know if I threw it through that or not, but definitely for a lot of the IR images, I seem to get a lot of noise.
Yeah, it's typical of the IR. Okay. Your exposure times are a little bit longer, and the light that gets through, that red light, even though it comes through and cranks the meter the wrong way, a lot of times it does leave, it comes through, it's not as full spectrum. So when you don't have as much light filling the void, then you end up with noise and everything else. I mean, this image looks pretty clean to me. I think most of what I'm seeing, like on the columns, is pretty much just the grain of the stone itself, because I'm looking at like the trees and the branches, because the telltale would be like in this branch area right here, and that doesn't look noisy to me.
Okay.
And that's usually where I'll look. I think this is pretty much like it's either the granite or whatever these are made out of, and I think it looks great because the texture is just phenomenal. I mean, and the funny thing is like when I go black and white, as long as it's not chromatic noise, I love it. I mean, I am not, as long as the image doesn't look soft because of it. I mean, that's, I like, as long as it's a sharp image, I don't mind noise so much in black and white images. So, yeah, it's just me, but that's kind of my, thing. But I think this is really a fairly clean image. And if you're running it through that program, which I know is a decent program, it's doing its job. I would always pre-process my raw files with Define from Nick before I would actually start working on them. Because that was one of the better noise reducers. Now I have DxO, and that hands down is, with its prime adjustments in DxO, it does things I've never seen before with keeping the sharpness, but the noise just is gone. And I don't know how it does it. They're obviously like black wizards or something there or something. I don't know. Be very careful with your, here you've got a little bit of ghosting going on with your, you're going to want to selectively deghost those branches when you redo this or rework on this, because you've got some, right in there's some artifacts. Yep. Either that or clone them out. It wouldn't show when you're just looking at it on screen like this. You don't really see it, but if you were to print it, you're definitely going to see this branch coming down was moving on you. So you got some ghosting going on, but that's the other thing about doing HDR outdoors. Unless if there's any wind at all, then you got all that work to do. It's funny for a guy who used to shoot HDR of everything. Man, I hardly shoot any brackets anymore at all. It's just ridiculous. Unless I'm doing like a shot, unless there's a real big dynamic range, like I would definitely do it here, because I want, whatever details in here so that I don't have noise everywhere. And when you go to process this, you want the option to be able to have this either open so you can see it or have it dark and mysterious. Those are the options as an artist. And if you don't bring the paint, then you're not going to have it there to paint with. I mean, it's just, I get all these people who are like, well, you can make HDR from one file. Well, you can't. So we don't even really make HDR. I don't know how to break it to everybody, but HDR is just becoming available in monitors. What we actually create are LDR and tone crunched images, but the option is we have all these extra tones to work with. So if you don't shoot HDR, you don't have the extra tones to kind of manipulate and cram into your image to get it the way that you want to. You're only left with whatever the camera picked up in that one frame. So, that's the beauty of it, is being able to pull out sections of the image where we can't look at them all at the same HDR exposure. Not yet, but soon. It's going to blow people's minds when they actually see the first real HDR image on a real HDR screen, which, Sony and a bunch of these guys are making now. They're making big HDR 4K and 8K beasts for us to view on. It's going to be really remarkable to see those first images in a full spectrum. I can't even imagine, because we've never seen them. No one ever gets to see that. I guess that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that we cram all that stuff together, and Lightroom just gives us a very narrow window that we can look at, because our monitors can only produce just so much, and the new monitors can produce it all. So it's going to be pretty fantastic.
That'll be interesting. We might have to throw all of our images away.
Isn't that something? Like, you think about it and you go,
yeah, it's like, but
mind blowing that we're going through this period right now where a lot of big things are happening. The very first GPU just came out that has a removable, replaceable GPU that you can upgrade. So that's the first big step. It's also faster than anything that's currently available. And Intel just came out with a processor that's got 10 cores that run at 3 gigahertz apiece.
I read that this morning.
Just the tip of what's going to happen. And then you add these. So there's a magic number out there in VR world of 240 hertz per eye. And when that's achieved, when 240 hertz at 16,000 pixels or something like that per eye, once they achieve that, the human brain will not be able to tell the difference between reality and looking at a screen. So if you can imagine that combined with HDR imaging and movies, there's a big, huge change that's coming, and everybody should be really excited about what's going to happen in the next 5 years, I think, in imaging. Imaging is going to be amazing. And we're going to become brand new. It's like the difference between, the old days of silent movies and then going to talkies and then 3D movies, and now a movie that you're going to look at a flat screen and think you can reach into it. And it's not going to be 3D. It's just going to look like it's 3D. So pretty exciting. Cool. All right, let's take a look at your next image. And I notice you're doing something a little bit that I really like. This image has got a message behind it, I think is really cool. But you're doing a lot. Do you find yourself liking portraiture of landscape? Like doing your landscapes in portrait mode?
It totally depends on the subject, I guess.
I'm sorry. Now I've made you notice that, and you're going to be asking yourself every time you go.
This is actually a pano, which I've been doing more of with my camera since I can't use my 10 to 20 lens, and I'm limited with my 16 to 35. I can't get everything that I used to get into the frame, which really kind of bugs me sometimes. So I hate the pano function on the A6000. It takes me like 18 attempts to get one. I'm either going too fast or too slow or, whatever. Yeah. So that's what this is, trying to get that whole wall. And then the circle up top is actually the ceiling.
Gotcha.
A very unusual building. This is the train station in Cincinnati. So, I knew I wanted the reflection on the floor and that kind of big globe at the bottom with all the light. And then, might as well throw the ceiling in for good measure.
Well, I think it completes it. I think it's a very surreal image. The message behind it comes through loud and clear. So I think that, yeah, all of that is working together quite well in this image. It is leaning a little bit. I'm going to call you on the whole level part of it. It is leaning slightly to the right. So you'll want to address that a little bit. I think it might be a perspective thing because it looks like it's leaning more from the window. That's what drew me. So I'll tell you why I see that is because to me, the flag is kind of the message here. I think knowing the name of the image also confirmed that. But for me, when I first saw the image, I didn't look at the name first. I looked at the image itself and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. The flag is like transparent, and I thought that was pretty awesome. And so my eye is drawn to that area. And when it is, I can see the vertical kind of, or the horizontal lean to the right, just slightly. And it's a perspective thing, which is really hard to get perfect, especially if you're shooting a vertical panel. It's one of those things. Again, I think with this one, I think you can, so the trick to getting these to line up right is to balance the amount of skewing that's going on at the top of the image and at the bottom of the image. And that's a lot of times that's very hard to do when you don't have a complete set of lines everywhere to deal with. Like in this image, we don't have lines up at the top that we can measure or look at. We only have lines really on the window. So in order to get that right, what you would probably want to do is find the center point of the window, which would probably be right in here, if I was just guessing. And what you would do is put a ruler across the center point. And if I measure that center point line, it looks like it's slightly off. And if I look at just these two windows right here, if I put it down here at the bottom, I can see that it's a very little space. But if I look at those same lines at the top, you can see that space on the left is quite a bit higher. And if I look at that same spot on the bottom, you can see it's quite a bit lower. So that means that what I need to do is I need to get the space on the bottom to equal the space on the top and then make my horizontal adjustment, which will line it all up perfectly. That's the trick to getting perspective correction right. And where it drives people nuts because they'll go in and they'll be like, oh, it's a rotation, and they'll rotate the photo, and then they'll be like, oh no, that other line's off. Okay, I can use horizontal. They use horizontal, and at that point, they're screwed because both angles now are off to the point where it's like the Rubik's Cube. You made the wrong move, and now you might as well take it apart and start over because that's your only option. And so, yeah, that's the trick to perspective is whatever you're trying to straighten is you always want to go to the midpoint, make sure you check it at the midpoint, check it at the top. And then your first adjustment should be to try to get the top space angle the same as the bottom space angle so that they're flaring away from each other from the midpoint. And once you have that, a simple adjustment then to your horizontal will make that line up. So let me just, for instance, it for you. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to say the midpoint, like I said, is right here. So the first adjustment that I'm going to do to your image is a rotation. So that would be my first adjustment. Because I noticed that they're all off and there's a difference between the top and the bottom. So I'm going to try to make the top and the bottom match first by rotating slightly to the left. Rotating all the way to the left, it'll still be off. So I just want to do maybe one click. Let's just do one, and then I'll check it. So I'll go look at it now and look at the top. Now I'm looking at this cross beam and lining it up with the bottom of my screen. I can see it's a very little space now. And at the bottom, it's a very little space now. Okay. So now that I have that, and this is all in the center of the image, a slight horizontal adjustment now should fix it. Let me go the wrong way first because I always they always have these controls backwards. I hate that. It isn't going to need much. It's so ridiculously little. All right, so we got more space at the top. And now it's perfectly, oh, no, a little bit more space. So maybe now we just didn't rotate it. We got to rotate it one more click to 2. And that should do it. So you should be lined up in the middle and at the top now. And that's generally how I go about my perspective correction to fix that slight angle issue. It can drive you mad otherwise. And that's, there's a video I did about the brute force correction, and you can go that route too. And also there's viewpoint from DxO that you can draw the lines at each of the corners, and then you could just say, well, I only want the horizontal lines to be straight, and it will warp it only so the horizontal lines are straight, so you don't lose the angle that you have in the photo. Otherwise, it'll try to straighten everything up, and you would lose that awesome ceiling that you have up there. So, and this one's good. I think this one is one of those images where you're looking up at the flag. I think all of that kind of makes sense with your message to the image. And again, amazing processing. I absolutely love it. I'm not totally in love with whatever they were drawing. Do they have like a world map on the floor?
I didn't even look down at it, but I'm annoyed with it also. It's some Art Deco shenanigans.
Why would they do that? That's too Art Deco. I think you might be able to go through this and just darken these just a very little bit. I wouldn't try to clone them out, but you could probably darken these so that they're just not as prominent, because they're just strips of inlaid metal between the concrete. And I think I don't think you need to take out much of them either, because you know what, when you're just looking at it normally, even zoomed in, they're not screaming at me. But when I'm zoomed back like this, just this area right here starts to be a little loud in those lines. But that's it. I mean, other than that, they're not really prominent. You see this little guy right here with the crack in it too. That's kind of, if you're looking for distractions in your overall image, that kind of stands out a little bit to me as I move back from the image. Images like this are people always view them like in a gallery. They want to stand back and just kind of take the overall kind of abstract quality of the image, because there's an abstract look to this. I think that's kind of when I look at your images, I kind of see you look at the larger shape of things. Like, and I could be wrong, and you can correct me if I am, but when I see your images, I see you look at, flow and shapes, like that one highway photo that you had that was so awesome there. I was really taken by the curvature of the road and the way that you had that all kind of, manipulated in that angle that you took on it. So people will look at this from a little ways back. So that's the way I would look at it. And for me, these two lines and that little guy right there are really distracting to me. Probably more so than the angle of things, really. That was very minor. And I'm OCD. So whenever I see, I have the worst time watching movies. My girlfriend will sit with me and she'll be like, "What are you looking at?" And I'll be like, Did you see that? Did you see, like, totally wasn't the same shot in the last edit? And she's like, "How do you even?" And I said, "Because it bugs me. I don't know. It's not a fun thing to have in your head. Trust me." So I'm the same way with music. So like simple music bores the crap out of me, and then I listen to really complicated stuff and I got to go back to simple music. So yeah. All right. Any questions on this image at all? Chris, did you have any particular hangups with it?
No, I didn't. No, I think I'm not taking in the whole image when I'm doing that straightening work, because I'm taking something that's like super painfully obvious to my eye and then calling the rest of it good. Mm-hmm. Like originally that main curve arc up on top was out of whack. And once I got that kind of straightened out, I was on to the next thing.
Sure. And I think where you're going with your art, and you've got a couple of awards under your belt now. I think that you can move into the fine art world with the type of work that you do, but it's going to require that border patrol. It's going to require that extra, put it away for a little bit, come back and look at it and cook it some more. And look for those little things like that may be distracting away from your main part of the story here, which when I look at this image, it's the flag, but it is the whole like the stripes in the window, I think mirror the stripes in the flag. I think I like that. And you're really led into the image. But the distractions around, when I'm just trying to kind of be zen with the image, they are nagging. And those are the things that we got to border patrol and focus on. And you're 99.9% of the way there with these. So it's just little stuff, just that little extra push, Cool beans. Let's look at this next image. This is an awesome image here. This must be the outside. I'm taking it from the windows. And I didn't know that until you told me what it was, because I knew this was some sort of train station, but I didn't put the two together. So
yes. Yeah, so that is the exterior. This is with the 16 to 35 on the Sony, and always wishing for a little bit more field.
Yep.
Same thing here with the leaning windows on the right. I mean, that's why I brought it. I mean, I don't think this is like a particularly awesome image. I mean, it's an interesting building, but I don't know if there's really a story here other than like this monument to industry that was a train station. So yeah, the leaning windows on the right, and I'm not thrilled with the sky, but that's the hand I was dealt that day, and I didn't think this image warranted the work for sky replacement, so I haven't done that.
Well, I'm gonna step right in and say I agree with you. It's a beautiful building. It's amazing, and I'm gonna give you a little tidbit of information that you said you may get back there, and I would really, really like to see you do the same shot, the same angle. Oh my gosh, why would I ask to do that? But shoot vertically about 3 more frames of just sky above this. Then when you bring it back, you can straighten it. Okay. And you can also, because if I try to straighten this image, which I did, I played with this a little bit because the same thing yelled at me, the same thing about the vertical thing, because it didn't, to me, this is about those 2 lines in the image. To me, the curvature of this fascia and this beautiful, the walkway here curving around, and the top here curving, and then this curving into it. That's what I'm seeing, this whole sweeping kind of thing going on. And the leaning back part of it, in this particular image, it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't lend anything to it. This is a brutal piece of architecture that's gorgeous and doesn't need any sort of angles to lend a childlike view or anything like this. This is a building that's like, I'm here. You can take any picture of me. I'm going to be solid and strong, and I've lasted all this time. And I mean, even this, the picture, I think this is Mercury here on the front. That kind of signifies that power and strength as well. So what I did is, I tried the vertical like this, and you can do it. I mean, let's see, get the angles on the right and the left. So what I do first, do the vertical is the main adjustment here. I'm looking at the angle of lean in here on this side and the angle of lean in here on this side, comparing them in my mind if they were both the same height, which is the hard part of perspective correction. And then once I have those where I think they're leaning in about the same amount, the final piece of vertical will bring them completely parallel. So if I line up just one, the other one comes in automatically. So it kind of does a couple of things here. One of the things, it gets rid of that sky that you don't really care about. It does make the building a lot taller now, and stretches that out a little bit, but you do lose a lot of the curved walkway at the bottom.
Yep.
So the only way around that is to overshoot and then recrop and manipulate once you get it home. So get more of this over here on the left, get more on the right, get the walkway down here in the bottom and shoot high. And then when you bring it home, you can straighten it and you don't have to worry about things that are cut off, and then crop that sucker and you have it exactly the way that you want. The only other thing is to get 10 feet off the ground and level your lens. That's the only way you could do it, and shoot from farther back. That'll compress the angles for you. So and I don't know if those options, I don't know, I've never been there. Maybe you don't have 10, maybe there's a cliff behind you or something. I don't know, or a crocodile. Could be anything. So I don't know those, things. And the things we have to be careful about this vertical straightening thing too, is that a lot of times it makes things look big head. So we got to be careful with that too, because this image is starting to look big head, which means that it doesn't look natural. The top of it looks like it's way bigger than it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So that's that balancing act. And that's why it's really important to get that lens level in the field, and then get that shot, and then overshoot what you don't have, and then pano it and put it, bring it back into perspective, and it'll pop right back in perfectly for you.
Okay. All right, cool. That was totally awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, this one I wouldn't perspective correct. I would call this one, it's a gorgeous building, gorgeous image. You're processing again. I'm not even talking about that because it's, what am I going to say? It's awesome, as usual. The main thing here is just, I would look at this as like this is what I consider in myself as a redemption shot. I'm like, oh, I'm going back. I'm going to get that. I'm going to get it the way I want it. And so I'm going to go back and shoot it a bunch of different ways with the angles and all that kind of stuff, and then bring yourself home a whole plethora of toys to play with and see where that goes.
Yep.
One of the things that's kind of neat that you can do, I don't know if you've ever tried this or not, but you see how you have this no parking sign, like right in the middle of your gorgeous Art Deco building, that sign wasn't there when they built this place in the 50s.
You noticed
40s.
that?
Yeah, well, I noticed those stupid signs. What's a really cool trick for getting rid of them and not having to do like a major amount of cloning work is actually, while you're there, once you've got the shot that you want and you've got all the shots that you're going to use, put your camera back and recompose for the very first shot that you did, or you can do it right after the first shot. Move your camera to the right or to the left by just a couple of feet, but keep the composition of the shot the exact same. Okay. And when you get home, you'll actually have all of the information that's behind that sign to just paste it back in and take the sign out. You can do that with wires too. A lot of times when you have telephone wires, if you raise your camera up by 1 foot and you take the same shot, you don't actually change the angle of the camera at all. All you do is just move the camera up by 1 foot and take another frame. If you bring that home, you can actually put the two images together and erase the wires with the simple erase tool.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, Photoshop will actually align the two images right together for you perfectly, and then all you do is just erase the sign and it's gone.
Nice.
Which is always awesome, rather than trying to clone it. Because you do have a repeating window, so this wouldn't be that difficult to just take this part of the window and paste it over here and line it up with the warp and get it in there, and then make it into one layer, and then just content aware, take the bottom half of it. It'll go right away.
Yeah.
And match it up nicely. I just think it's a kind of a distraction with this beautiful building. I don't mind the cones didn't bother me. I didn't see them from a distance. I guess if I'm in an art gallery though, I got to tell you, buddy, if you're going to blow this thing up to 90 inches, don't laugh, because this is so. Did Lisa ever tell you the story about her famous Milky Way shot? Well, here's a lesson. Here's a hard lesson to learn. You post a shot on the interwebs, the lovely place that we call the interwebs, and she got a prospective buyer who wanted it big, and it was full of noise. She blew it up to look at it. It was full of noise. She couldn't sell her photo. She had a buyer. So you take this to an art gallery and you blow it up. Somebody wants it big. I don't think you're going to want a couple of cones in there. You're going to want to probably take them out. So, Border Patrol, simple little stuff. You're 99.9% of the way there. Again, it's just, the subject matter, man, you're just finding these beautiful spots. So, your eye for composition is dead on. Don't change compositions. It just comes down to little things, very little, teeny little things.
Cool.
Good stuff. All right. This image you love so much, you sent me it twice.
What do you know?
Or Dropbox did. One of them did. So. All right. So what did you face with this image that was that inspired you to bring it along?
You know, it's got a lot of the same theme here. Those trees on the right leaning in like slay me. And had I known about the liquefy tool, I don't know if we'd be having this conversation. But the trees on the right, the telephone pole underneath the bridge, like the way those things lean really throw me off. And then if I got that corrected, I might think about, okay, is that bridge leaning away from me in a way that I don't like? This is shot looking up a hill with the 10 millimeter, so where there's going to be distortion. But yeah, I don't know if I can even see the bridge through the trees right now, to be honest with you. So,
Well, there's a universal cure. You're not going to like it, but I'll tell you what it is. It's to go the other way with your focal length and move. That's really the great solver. Is if you move back farther and you zoom in more, the lines will straighten up more for you, and you'll still get as much, but you got to move back. I mean, you'd have to move back, from this shot, you'd probably have to move back 100 yards to go to 16 millimeter with it, or whatever you were shooting. If we were shooting 16, go to 35, but that's really your own, and you're not going to get the underside of the bridge. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I know a lot of photographers, what they would do with an image like this is they would probably remove the telephone pole altogether.
Yeah.
And the trees, yeah, a little bit. I mean, I like the tree on the left coming in, reaching in. That's kind of cool. I've always liked bridges when they come out from the trees. I think that's kind of awesome. It kind of looks like it's just being suspended by the trees. That's kind of a look all of itself. Maybe just a little lightening of the trees themselves, a little toning work in them. I don't know. They don't really bother me. I mean, there is a dark triangle in the upper right-hand corner from the darkness of those trees. Whether or not lightening that a little bit in there with the adjustment brush in Lightroom does it for me and makes it. A lot of times distractions come from contrasts. So it's not so much the shape or what it is, but sometimes contrast draws our eye way more than a leaning tree will. And we went through this a lot in earlier critiques where people were like, oh no, I've got a triangle in the corner. I'm like, yeah, but it's not a dark triangle on a light background or a light triangle on a dark background. It's blended in nicely. So it's not really a triangle unless it's defined. So, your tree's defined with there's a lot of contrast up in that corner. Maybe you take some of the contrast out and that doesn't bug you so much. I don't know. That'd be something worth playing around with, I think. But if you like the angle, like for me, I would probably I think the way that you have it now, the angle, I think I would probably try to take the telephone pole out and lighten that. I think that would be my suggestion, simply because what attracted your eye here, and I could be wrong, but I know it attracts my eye, is the balance of these two lines of the arch between the bottom of the bridge and the top of the bridge as it goes through the span. That means that drew you to that angle to shoot it. If you were farther back, that wouldn't have that same balance to it. There'd be more distance between these two top lines, and the bottom two lines down here would be closer together. So maybe subconsciously, that's why you stood at this point and took this shot. I don't know. Because you like that balance of those lines. You see those lines. I see it in all of your shots. So that's what I'm going on. That's what my brain is telling me.
Yep.
So, I think that you could probably take this out. It would definitely be some work. You got some work there. And the other thing is too, I mean, you're in a suburban area. You got a lot of cars parked down here. That's way too much work, I think, for this image. And maybe it's just one of those images that the area is just not up to par for the caliber of what you're doing. Because a lot of your images are very minimal. Like they don't have a lot of elements in them. They don't have a lot of noise going on, which is in noise. I mean, like a lot of different things to look at. You keep it kind of to the shape and kind of monolithic look to it. And that's when I see your work, I don't see like a lot of noise. And a lot of times when we have like a lot of trees like this and we got cars parked on the road, and our telephone poles in here. There's a lot of elements in this image that don't scream Chris to me.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, I'm like, so you sent it twice. I'm still not buying it as much, as much as I do the other images that you brought.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense at all?
No, yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I think when you haven't shot a lot of infrared, like you can overlook some things just for the wow factor of everything turning white. So I think I'm still in that mode where I was willing to overlook the cars because the trees look so badass.
Right.
But at the same time, like I know this isn't like, this is not going in the portfolio. I really like this bridge and I like this perspective of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a cool image. It's like perfect for Instagram or something like that where nobody can drill into it. So
absolutely. Yeah. By all means. Yeah. And, and I think that it's a perfect image to bring to a critique because it's just discovering those things when you're out there, right? And you're trying to discern between, all right, man, because I know when I see a scene and I look through the viewfinder, I can, in my eye, I say portfolio. I can see it. And I can see the end result. And I think that just comes with this discovering of what it is that makes you. And I think that, that part of that is the minimalist, working with beautiful compositions and architecture, and not having too much in the image. And that doesn't make your job easy because we just keep putting more crap in this world.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. I mean, I tell people all the time, and people are like, well, why do you isn't upstate New York beautiful and all this? Yeah. If you like shooting telephone poles and telephone wires everywhere and there's more of them every day and signs on everything. And I mean, you can't have a waterfall up here that doesn't have a sign on it. It's ridiculous. And, and then I go out west and there's no signs on anything. They're like, yeah, if you want to jump off that cliff, go ahead. We're not going to stop you or clean you up. So that comes. But, so that's the thing I think is just discovering that in yourself. And these images are perfect for what you said. This shows what you do. It's not, it's not a drill down image. Exactly. It's got wow factor off the top. I think if you take the telephone pole out and you lighten that side, maybe no one sees the cars but me. That could, easily be one of those things. But I think as far as like an image that screams you to me, this one doesn't do that. The other ones do that much better. So,
yep.
All right, man. That's a wrap, I think. That means, I think there's one more. Yes, that means you've graduated to Sphere 2. I know that's a huge surprise to you. But congratulations. I do have one more thing though. I promised you some little tricky thing.
Yes,
and I might as well show everybody this, or I could turn it off and make it more special. I will show everybody, but I did this because of Chris, because he asked me for something a little on his workflow. So I had to come up with something, of course. Otherwise I look like a fool and don't know what I'm talking about. So I went out today and I broke out my absolutely totally piece of crap infrared camera and I took this photo. So this probably looks very familiar to you. Yep. The images come out looking pinkish, reddish, whatever. Now I didn't get blue sky because the blue sky was there until I got in my car and I drove down to the park and I set up my camera and realized that my filter was at home. So it happens to all of us. I had to drive home, which is absolutely like 2 blocks. I drove home and I drove back. And sure enough, the beautiful partly cloudy skies were completely gone. So you get a cloudy photo over a willow tree on a pond. That's all I can give you. But what I wanted to show you with this is you've been taking your image. This is a raw image, and I've done some fixing. My sensor dust is horrible on my. I got to put a new filter in my camera, and it's really bad. And I spend like hours just removing spots. So
So let me just stop you right here for a second, AD, and talk to me about how you're metering this out in the field. Does that histogram mean anything, or is that just total crap?
Nope, the histogram is perfect, and that's what I use.
All right.
Plus, I don't use my viewfinder or my LCD for anything. I look in the viewfinder. I put my hand over my eye, and I darken it up as dark as I can get it. And the camera I shot this on was an A55, which is absolutely piece of crap to look into. The view is just horrible. But I look in there, and I'm getting my focus first and everything, and then I play with the exposure wheel until the image looks fairly balanced to me. So I just keep going back and forth and back and forth, and I usually tend to go a little bit to the hot side. So I'll lean now this has been adjusted, but originally before it was adjusted, the histogram on this was leaning more towards the right. So I was more like, I shot it kind of like that. So when I see it in the histogram, I'm shooting for kind of that curve, and it's one of those things where you kind of got to learn the camera, I think, because every camera is just a little bit wacky. Like I put in my filter myself. It doesn't have any hot filter in it at all. I took the hot glass out. I put in my own filter, and it's got the mirrorless translucent crap in it and everything. And I actually had an ND filter on in front of this. So I shot this through the IR in the camera, and then I had a 10-stop filter in front of this because I'm insane. I don't know why I did that, but I was just messing around trying different things. Well, I wanted a long exposure, but the damn sun was so bright that I couldn't get much more than 5 seconds out of my 10-stop, which is ridiculous. But IR light does not act like other light does. It goes through ND filters like they're not even around. Yeah. You'd have to stack 3 or 4 of them to get it to really start to drop IR light. And that's the cool thing about IR, and not the cool thing at the same time. A lot of times I don't even take a tripod when I'm shooting IR. I just walk around with the camera because it's so fast that I don't usually worry about putting it on a tripod. So I just used the histogram. I did a bunch of adjustments to this. I did not, I set my white balance in the camera for custom, and I point it at some sunlit grass, and I calibrate it by the sunlit grass because that's what's supposed to be white in my viewfinder. But keep in mind that does nothing to your raw file. You're still getting all of the raw data. So no matter what you set your white balance in your camera, it only shows up in your preview. What you're getting in your raw data is just no white balance at all. Just a little flag that says this is what the camera was set on. But so I use the as shot for my white balance. Let's put just back to where I had it kind of right there. All right. And I do all my adjustments here to my highlights and all my basic adjustments basically to get it to where I want to. If I do lens correction, sharpening, any of that kind of stuff, I'll do all of that. Then I come down here at the bottom, and I have a secret adjustment that you don't have in your Lightroom. Dun, dun, dun. But you will after tonight. I click this button right here, and underneath it is a thing that says red-blue swap in Lightroom. Pretty cool. And it works. It turns my image purple. But that's all I need. So what I basically do is once I've got everything done and I do my red-blue swap within Lightroom, what I'll do is I'll export this out as a DNG file. So we're going to export you out. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to export it normally. I did this earlier. And send it out to an IR file, and I send it out as a TIFF, I think. Yes. TIFF 300. Okay, so I don't shrink it. I don't do any of that stuff. Just TIFF file, uncompressed. So that runs off and goes out to a folder, which is on my hard drive, which is over here, right there. And then I have this cool program. So this is a 2-parter. I have this cool program called UF Raw. And it's totally free. Doesn't cost a penny. I got to find it. So let me just call it up here. You can't integrate it into Lightroom. This is the only part of the whole workflow that kind of sucks. You have to load it, and it is for a Mac. It is for a PC. Either one. You get it for either one, and it's totally 110% free and hidden on my hard drive someplace. So hold on 1 second. Oh, I had another folder open, then I closed it when the stupid thing blew up, and yeah, no. All right, so UF raw, and it's and it is the ugliest program on the planet. Here's the proof. Very ugly. I'm sure it looks a lot better on a Mac. In fact, I know it looks a lot better on a Mac. So let's just jump over to my IR file here. Now, this is not the TIFF file. It won't, I don't think it will load TIFFs. Yeah, it will. All right, here we go. Oh, yeah, it won't load. I think I did this earlier. I don't think it'll load the TIFF file. Let me just make sure, but I'm pretty sure. It means I got to show you the disgustingly bad raw file. All right, you get the disgustingly bad raw file. Let me reset the temperature here to the camera's white balance so you can kind of see what it was looking like before we brought it in here. I think. Oh, this is the affected one. It means I've already loaded it in. All right. Hold on. We'll do this again. Export, this time as a DNG file. I think it's only on my machine that I got to reconfigure it so that the TIFF files export properly, because they're not going out the way that I want them to. Let me stick that in there. Like that. Overwrite. That way you can see the real file. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is the real DNG. So I'm just going to load that up in UF raw, and you'll see it's pretty crazy. At least I hope you will. Hello, anybody home? There it is. All right, took a second. So there's the DNG file, and the setting that you use in here is the manual white balance. This is like the weirdest white balance setting program ever, but we know that the tree here is definitely white. So all you do is marquee just a little part of the tree. You're probably not seeing the marquee draw out there because it's not showing for me either. Is that awesome? I think it's because of the Hangout. And then once you do that, you hit on the little eyedropper, and it will actually, will it? There it is. There's the marquee right there. You're seeing it now, right?
Yep.
So once you have that marquee on there, then you hit the eyedropper, and boom, it goes to false color. So now you have a real false color version, and I save it. Oh, it does not want to do full screen. Wow, that's really strange. And then I blew it up. Well, it saved it. And then what I do generally is off screen, I just take in, if I'm in the library mode, this just makes it a little bit more easy to deal with. I'll take the TIFF file and I'll just drag it and drop it on Lightroom from the folder that I saved it to from UF raw, and it puts it in here nicely for me, and I'll import it back into the same catalog. And now I have, without ever going to Photoshop, I now have the a false color version of the file. And just to make sure that it's dialed in, what I usually do now is I will pick whatever I see here and make sure that it is I'm selecting absolute white for that. And then you can go ahead and adjust your contrast here and kind of get the image to pop the way that you want to. And you're going to have to go ahead and do all of the stuff to it again, or you can cheat like I do, and you can say, go to folder and library, and the adjustments that you made on the original, you can actually click on both. So I don't have to remove those dust spots again. What I can do is now just sync those two together in develop and get all my settings and say check none. And then we're just going to check off, where is my
upper right?
It's so hard to see, like with this monitor where it's at, and then synchronize, and that'll go ahead and clean up my new image after it added, like, I think 1,000 points of spot removal, which it's going to take forever it's to like process the rest of the night. But anyways, that's basically to get to the false color part of it, and then you can kind of tone from there or go to black and white or however you want to process the image. But that keeps me out of Photoshop almost completely.
Yeah.
So it eliminates that. And the UF raw, what's nice about it is if you don't want to do any of the false color swapping stuff, you can actually just load the raw file directly into UF raw from here. So if I go to this folder in my library, and you would actually go to, let's see, you would say show in Finder if you're on a Mac.
Yep.
You're on a Mac, right?
Yeah.
So then what I would get is the raw file here. If I do this, I can send the raw file directly to UF raw from here. It will load all raw files, and you get to see it in its native form, which this is what it was before we did any swapping to it. You were seeing the Lightroom version of it before. And here, what I'll do is do the highlight thing. And the thing that this has the super advantage of is UF Raw has a wider white balance than Lightroom or Photoshop can offer. Photoshop has like a limited range of white balance, where this program has no range. It can go anywhere. So if it says if you say it's white, it will move ridiculous numbers to make sure that it's white. So it's kind of a big time saver if you're not even using the red blue swap to just do straight up white balance correction with UF Raw, and it's completely free program. So
nice. Yeah, I like the way that false color one was going. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah, you can do all sorts of cool stuff with that, and you know, you also can, if you want to do the black and white, you can. I love false color. I love, like, if you get blue skies and clouds and water, the water comes out black, the skies come out this indigo blue with the pure white clouds and the pure white foliage, and it is just so awesome. And then you take that and, you know, apply a little bit of glow on it, and suddenly it just becomes a whole new world. And that's what intrigues me about IR. So, but yeah. I will send you a link so that you can get all of those fun toys tonight after we get done.
Okay. Hey, before you bounce out of Lightroom.
Yes, sir.
The channel swap that you had down there, was that under the profile? Because I'm not seeing it in my version for one reason or another.
Well, that's what I said. You don't have it. No one has it but me.
In Lightroom.
Right.
Because you're special sauce. Okay.
I'm special. Yeah. I'm going to give it to you though. So you have it and you can play with it. Yeah. Right. It's a special profile, and it's just super easy to install. It installs in the camera raw folder. Are you on a Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give you there's a little website. It's got explicit instructions on how to install. It's real super simple. And as long as you're working with a raw file, it will do a channel swap on a raw file.
Okay, great.
Yep. We'll do that as soon as we're done here. I will dig that up for you.
Sweetness.
I have both links. So awesome job, man. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, and I hope you're not going anywhere. I mean, I hope you're going someplace, but I hope you're not leaving us. I hope you'll hang out with all of us and continue to have fun. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I have no idea what my options are going forward. So,
well, let's talk about that a little bit. You basically are going to be invited to the Level 20 Lounge. I think it's called the Artist Atrium now. And that's basically, or it might be, I'm mixing that up with Level 10. I don't know, because I don't do it. So everybody else does it but me. But anyways, you're going to be invited to a place where other Sphere 2 folks are at. And essentially, they're going to hang you on a rack, and they're going to say, here's this nice, fine, fresh piece of meat. Who wants them? And you're going to have all these to get you into their cohort. And it's kind of like, you know, you can make it, you're kind of have all the power at that point, which is awesome. So you can pick, you know, whoever's program that you really want to go with. Jessica Lark has a thing for doing a business plan for, like, you set a dollar amount of what you have to earn, and she will make a business plan of how to make that much money doing photography. Whether it be, you know, no matter what kind of photography you're doing, whether or not you can actually pull it off or not, that's going to be, you know, up to you, but she gives you that plan. I do the blogging, SEO, marketing, branding, eliminating of website crap out of your life so that you can continue to shoot and create and not have to worry about that sort of stuff, but still having it work like your own personal assistant for you as you go. I mean, that's the only way I can get all of this stuff done and still have time to hang out with you and still have time to go shoot and do all the other things. I do sleep, which a lot of people think I don't, but I do. So there's that. There's Mason Marsh, he's got a Sphere 4 going, I think now, or 3 or something, Sphere 3. I don't know. There's Ron Clifford for landscapes. He brings a total poetic meaning to shooting your landscapes. He gives you a whole kind of thing to go on. There's Martin Bailey. There's Glenn Guy, amazing black and white photographer. So there's all sorts of different things that you're going to discover when you go to this new community on Google, and you're going to be able to kind of just pick and choose. You'll see my spiel in there along with everybody else's, and just choose wisely, I guess, at this point. I think what they're going to allow people to do is actually take other spheres over again. So you can take one and then, you can go back, and if you decide, well, now I want a website and I want to do this, you can take mine. Or if now I want to do a business, I can take Jessica's or whatever. So there's all of that. I can also put in a good word for you if you decide and you're not getting a response from a master. I will slap them or whatever I have to do to get them to pay attention, to keep you moving. Yeah. So that's kind of the options that you're going to have going forward. And there's a lot of stuff, like Trey's got a bunch of stuff he gives away, I think, in the level 20 lounge and all sorts of cool things. You'll still have access to the grand library and all that kind of stuff as well too. So,
yep.
I'm going to look up, because I said I was going to do this. It's not Peter Jackson, damn it. I mean, I know he was a director of the Hobbit, but I'm trying to figure out what that the guy's name was. Why is it killing me? Maybe he was a producer. Aha. Nope, I'm not finding that either. Complete failure tonight. So I thought it was right here on the front page, but it doesn't seem to be. He does all of these effects for like crazy movies. Like he's well known for the kind of the look of these films. He has a crazy name. He did Pan's Labyrinth. What was his name? You guys know him. Anyway, you ever watch the movie Pan's Labyrinth?
I don't believe I have.
It's all in Spanish, but it's an amazing movie. You could just turn the sound off and just watch it. It's just brilliant. So yeah. But that's what it kind of, like, your work reminds me of that cinematic look. And I think that's, definitely signature of what you're doing. So don't stop any of that stuff. I think Border Patrol is the main thing. I think once you got that, and now that you got this new toy to play with, yeah. Good stuff, man.
I'm finding that IR camera works way, way better once I leave Florida, because the palm trees and stuff like that, I mean, it works, but you got to get up to those deciduous trees or whatever, and man, it really jumped then, and I was like, oh, this is why I got this done. I remember now.
Seems like the Savannah area would be brilliant with the Spanish moss plus the green going on all at the same time. Would and the trunks of a lot of those trees are just jet black.
Right, and the gnarled oak branches too. I mean, I think Savannah would be off the chain. Yeah,
it's on that's one of the places that's on my bucket list right now, is that coast, because there's the Boneyard and all sorts of amazing stuff through there, that Botany Bay and I want to get down there and shoot big time.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. We got to go. We have family in Florida, so we need to make it south at some point in time.
Yep. Sorry.
It's all right. We're going to wait till it's cold here, and then we might not come home. So
yeah, then it might be bearable here.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks so much, man. It's been awesome. And like I said, I'm going to go level you up, but please don't go anywhere. Hang out with us and continue to share your work. I know it's a lot of work to do the leveling and share in a couple different places, but we love to see it for sure.
That's cool. And I appreciate that, A.D. Thank you.
Awesome, man. All right. I'll see you over in the bat phone, and thanks everybody. You had 9 viewers, dude, tonight. So that was awesome.
Wow. Sweet.
And there was a request for you to take your shirt off. Did you?
Yeah, I think that was Tony. I think we gotta hang out later together. So
Oh, okay. I'm
I'll make him
I'm
wait.
starting to rethink my thoughts of doing a workshop with Tony. All right, man. We'll see you later.
Cool. Good night.
All right. Take care.